Today we're going to dive into a pretty unconventional, maybe even challenging, philosophy about wealth. It's drawn from the insights of a spiritual teacher, and honestly, it's a perspective that's probably going to flip a lot of what you think you know about being rich or poor on its head.
So, at the very heart of this whole thing is one simple but powerful idea. Wealth is a direct reflection of your life energy. Get this, it's not about your bank account, it's about your vitality.
This one idea immediately forces us to ask a tough question. What if everything we've been taught about money, guilt, and morality is just wrong? In this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how this philosophy tries to dismantle those long-held beliefs.
All right, so let's start with the absolute foundation of this entire philosophy. We have to redefine what wealth actually is.
According to this viewpoint, if you want more wealth, you shouldn't be chasing money. No. Instead, you should focus on increasing your life energy. The more vitality you express, the more aliveness you put out into the world, the more wealth you will naturally create. It's framed almost like a fundamental law of nature.
Now let's see how this idea takes on a really common emotion that's tied to money: guilt. I mean, if wealth is just life energy, why do so many people feel bad for having it?
The speaker points to this idea that's kind of baked into our culture, that having wealth is somehow wrong or sinful. But he argues that this imposed guilt completely misses the real point.
And here's where he makes a really critical distinction. He argues that wealth itself is neutral. It's not good or bad. The real moral question isn't about having wealth. It's about how you get it. Are you creating it, adding value to the world, or are you just grabbing it, taking from others? According to him, only the grabbing is the real sin here.
This quote really highlights what he sees as a positive feedback loop. When your entire focus is on creation, your energy is channeled constructively. You become so busy building and contributing that you don't even have the bandwidth for destruction or negativity.
So, if the guilt that we often tie to having wealth is misplaced, what about the other side of the coin? Well, this philosophy also takes aim at the idea that there's something inherently noble or spiritual about poverty.
The speaker calls this a form of cunningness. He suggests that people who fear the work, the risk, and the responsibility of creation sometimes rebrand that fear as a virtue. They're not sacred, he argues. They're simply scared. It's a clever and pretty provocative play on words.
And this justification is fueled by what he calls the slave mentality. It's a mental trick where we equate not doing the work, but having a really good reason, with actually having done the work. It's this internal loophole that justifies an action, and it's the root of the problem. After all, you can't live off your excuses.
So this cycle is absolutely crucial. You don't do the work, you invent a great story about why you couldn't, and your brain lets you off the hook. This process keeps your ego safe, but it creates absolutely nothing of value in the real world. And in this philosophy, that is a critical failure.
Okay, this entire line of reasoning, that wealth is life, that grabbing is wrong, and that poverty is often just a rationalization, it all builds up to the speaker's single most radical declaration.
We all grow up with a pretty clear moral framework, right? Stealing from someone is wrong. It's a foundational concept in pretty much every society on Earth.
Yeah, taking what isn't yours without contributing anything of value in return is universally seen as a negative, harmful act. It's a violation.
And then he completely flips the script. He declares a new smriti, which in the Sanskrit tradition means a sacred text or a remembered truth. And his new truth is this: just as grabbing is a sin, so is its opposite, the failure to create. In his view, not creating wealth is a moral failure.
So why on earth is this a sin? Because that life energy has to be expressed. It has to go somewhere. If it's not channeled into creation, he argues, it turns to destruction, either of others or of yourself through internal conflict. This is the ultimate tragic outcome of that slave mentality we saw earlier. It's not just inaction, it's a rejection of the natural creative flow of life.
So, if we accept this framework, how do you move from a state of not creating to a state of creating? Well, the answer, according to this, isn't about practical steps first. It's all about your inner state.
It all begins with cultivating a wealthy consciousness. This is defined as an internal readiness to be creative and to take full responsibility for your life and your energy. It's the mindset that has to exist before any external wealth can really be created and sustained.
To give this idea some structure, the speaker draws on Vedic tradition and outlines 4 dimensions of wealth: You can think of it in two pairs. First, there's held wealth, like a treasury, versus flowing wealth, like currency. Second, there's wealth that is conquered from raw resources versus wealth that is flowered through human creation and innovation. It just gives you a more multifaceted way to look at how wealth is generated and managed.
And that brings us to our final thought. If we take this philosophy at face value, even just for a moment, that wealth is simply a measure of our expressed life energy, it forces us to look at our own lives not through the lens of money, but through the lens of vitality, creativity, and responsibility. So the final question is, what is your life expressing right now?